My name's Steve Savage, I'm one of the partners at Gosschalks. We're a law firm based in Hull, and I've been asked to come along by the guys at KCOMs just to talk about some of the projects that we've worked on together and some of the technologies that we've used to innovate to good effect. So I'm aware I'm at a tech conference. Some of the things that we've done are not particularly groundbreaking. If you put the technology under a spotlight, it's not going to blow your socks off, but the effects of what we've done to innovate are quite profound. So I'm going to talk about sort of dumbing these things down a little bit in terms of innovations. But to do that, you've really got to understand your own business. You've got to understand your clients' businesses, their needs and the needs of their sectors. So sometimes I see businesses who get involved in tech and innovation and they're just itching to move forward and do great things, groundbreaking things all the time. Whereas sometimes I think you just need to take a step back and try to understand the challenges that you're trying to achieve. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So to give a little bit of context to what I'm saying, a little bit about Gosschalks, who we are, what we do and who we do it for. We're a commercial law firm with a national reach. We do a lot of work locally with SMEs and private individuals as well. But predominantly we service clients in the licensed leisure and retail sectors, so big supermarkets, pub companies, nightclubs, restaurant operators, hoteliers and that sort of thing. So that's what we do on a national level. So as a relatively small firm on a national level based in Hull, we're massively punched above our weight, which puts a lot of pressure on us from a technology perspective, because typically we're acting with these clients as a panel member. So there's other firms, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 times our size, working alongside us. So if we drop the ball once or our technology lets us down, we're very easy to dispose of. So that's why we've got to rely on technology partners like KCOM to ensure that we're always at the races. So that's just a little bit about Gosschalks. So I'm just going to talk about competitive advantage. As I say, I'm going to try and sort of dumb this down a little bit. I remember speaking to Dave Keel at the C4DI. We've been a supporter of theirs since their inception. We were talking about their beta building right at the very beginning. He was talking about the rationale for the C4DI, that there was all of this wonderful connectivity around the city. There was all of these sort of bedroom and garage industries that are starting to break out. And he wanted to provide a facility to bring all of them together under one roof and allow them to grow and give them a bit more of a voice. And I looked at that from our business's perspective and thought, well, we've got all that connectivity out there, but we're not harnessing that. We've just got it all within that one building centrally in the centre of Hull. And we've always had this quite lofty ambition that we want to be the firm that everybody wants to work for and with. So way back when, we were thinking about agile working, flexibility, retention of staff, attraction of good quality people, because it's never been easy. It's not just a newfangled thing because of COVID, it's always been tricky. So we had a real focus on that. So we were thinking about agile working and what we needed to do. So at that point, that's when we put into place our sort of cloud first thinking. So working with suppliers like KCOM, keep name checking because they had coffee afterwards. We put in place that cloud first sort of approach to things. And so for a number of years, we've been utilising Microsoft 365 and everything that's there in the cloud. We moved our entire practice management system to a cloud-based model as well. So you'd be very hard pressed to see the date on there, but the date on that picture in the corner on the screen is the 23rd of March 2020. The time on there is 6:10. And I took a picture of that because I thought it was quite a profound moment. That was the moment that Boris plunged us into full lockdown. And there's a Teams meeting with myself. I'm sat in the boardroom actually, not remote. At that point, but we've got our management team on a Teams call at a time when most law firms, certainly the ones that we compete with typically, didn't even have the basic capability. So we moved into the lockdown period in a seamless fashion. The next day we answered all our telephone calls, we got on with all of our transactions, we replied to our emails. It was as near as business as usual as you can possibly imagine. How did that give us competitive advantage? Well, a lot of our competitors wandered around with fancy laptops underneath their arms and talked about their investments in technology, but they weren't really really at the races. They didn't have the capability, the connectivity, they're not tried and tested these things. And we didn't see a pandemic coming, but we'd certainly tested our DR plan, so we knew what we would do if we lost access to the building, for example, or we lost access to key people. So we transitioned through that, and day one, we started to pick up new business because the phone would ring and we did something that our competitors didn't do, and we answered it. And we put those calls through to the right people. The amount of work that we generated as a consequence of that, with clients ringing and saying, the reason we contacted you is because our incumbents are not answering the telephone. They can't access the file because it's in the office, whereas you guys have got it digital. So we just got the fundamentals right. If you think about the basics of things, we got the fundamentals right before we raced ahead thinking about the latest and the greatest. That's a very basic example, I guess, of using technology to good effect for competitive advantage. Another example I'll give is some software that we developed for the licensing sector. So back in 2005, we transitioned to the new Licensing Act, as it was then, the 2003 Act, which was a massive change for the industry sector. So at the beginning of the talk, I mentioned about sometimes taking a step back and understanding what your clients and the industry needs. We could see that this was going to become a massive administrative burden, as I need to say, for our clients. So we developed some software to assist with that. So the software helped to transition them to the new Act with the new licenses so they could continue to operate, and then it provided a compliance layer. So we had a single single pane glass view on their entire estate, all of their licenses, all of the renewal dates, all of the key things that they needed to do, the key stages of the transactions. So from their perspective, it made us very sticky as far as they were concerned, because they were relying on our software. Today we've got clients include the likes of Asda, Morrison's, we've got Home Bargains on there, Cineworld Cinemas, Duffield Health, EG Group, Deliveroo, that kind of calibre of business. All because we took the time to think about what their requirements were and provided something fairly basic. As I say, when you look at that software under the microscope, it's very basic. Simplicity is its key. So it doesn't have to be overly fancy to have good effect. Then what we did with that software was we looked at the data that we had, because we knew that collecting data was going to be important to us. It wasn't just about the day-to-day compliance side of things. So we extracted some of the hours from that, put it into a spreadsheet, very rudimentary exercise, and we were able to establish that if some of these clients were to vary their hours or give a temporary event notice to the local authorities that were administering their licenses, they could open up their superstores for an extra 4 or 5 hours on the busiest trading days of the year. And that happens to be the 2 days prior to Christmas Eve. That's when we all go crazy. So when we would approach the clients and said, look, you could do this, and here are the stores that could be affected, what would the impact be? And the answer was, well, many, many millions of pounds worth of increased revenue for us. Thank you very much, Gosschalks. So put us in good stead with those clients. Again, made us very, very sticky. And just a basic use of data has resulted in millions and millions of pounds worth of additional revenue for our clients. And that's a process that we run year after year, year after year. And our competition didn't think to do that. So it's just a basic use of technology and data to good effect. It's not groundbreaking stuff. Then a little bit about suppliers, particularly KCOM. We've always worked with KCOM. I've been with Gosschalks now over 25 years, believe it or not. You wouldn't believe it. And in all that time, we've never sought to change supplier as far as telecoms and connectivity is concerned. And the reason for that is we've developed a genuine partnership. It's one built on trust. We challenge each other constantly, which I think is a healthy thing between supplier and customer. But things turned on the head completely in about November, December 2019, because at that point we were asked by KCOM's legal team to tender for some work. They were finalising the rollout of the citywide fibre network in Hull, and they had what I described as the dog ends, really. It's probably a better term for it. But these were the MDUs, the multiple dwelling units, so blocks of flats and such like that had been left to the end because they were the difficult ones. They were difficult sometimes because of the technical nature of the install, but more often than not it was because there were out-of-town landlords, out-of-town agents. We couldn't get hold of them to be able to grant the necessary wear leave. And the wear leave is effectively a licence that allows these guys to go in, install their apparatus in blocks of flats in public areas to get the fibre out to the relevant customers. And we won that tender, not just because we've got a great set of lawyers, we have a good set of people, but because we committed to deploying some technology to assist with that. So we built a bespoke portal that meant that the legal teams at our end, at KCOM's end, the engineering teams, the planners, could all feed into that at key stages through the transaction. And again, we'd have that sort of one version of the truth in terms of that project that we do, which was great because we could then report out to the likes of Ofcom who were interested in seeing what was happening in the progress, which was all fine until lockdown. So at that point, it'd have been very easy to step back from that and say, well, look, let's shelve this project and we'll come back to it. But what happened at that point was the demand started to shoot up from those customers that previously weren't a priority. So the people in the flats wanted to work from home, they wanted to homeschool the children, they wanted to go on Amazon and buy crap they didn't need, like we all did. And then, more profound than that, there was other areas where the demand was pretty much zero prices, so things like care homes. You know, the average 90-odd-year-old in a care home wasn't too fussed about high-speed broadband. When it came to the point where they couldn't contact loved ones, physically, there was no physical contact with them, it was a window to the world for them, and it was something that became something of a lifeline. So rather than step back from that because it was going to become difficult, we met the challenge head on. And I think what that showed to me was true partnership working. You had two businesses with a great culture, because when we looked at the staff, it was going to be challenging, it was going to be tricky, they were potentially going to be putting themselves into a position where certainly we didn't have to worry about their health and safety. And the job became much more difficult. But when we look back at everybody plugged together and we got that project done. Not quite on time, but not too far off considering everything. So I think that was just a great example of a proper, true partnership working. Two businesses coming together, two local businesses, and doing the right thing ultimately in the end for the communities that we'd serve. And some technology played its part in the middle of all of that. That helped us to win the business, and it was the connectivity that we had anyway as a KCOM customer that we used to liaise with all the different teams on the ground. So really a good project and something we were very proud to be part of. Appreciative of my time's coming to an end. The one thing I was asked to talk about at the very end was how I saw the future. So in terms of innovation, so as a business owner in Hull, I think the one word I would use is just confidence. You've got events like this, you've got facilities like the C40I, you've got investment from the likes of KCOM. And in the city, you've got a really steely determination to get things done. We have a Hull lad anyway. I often say, Hull, for outsiders, sometimes that businesses try to invest in Hull, doesn't always work, because I'm not entirely sure everybody quite has the same attitude that we have. We've got a real desire to get things done. Good example was, that project I just talked about. It would have been very easy to sit back and ignore that and not deal with the challenge, but we didn't see it as a reason not to do it. It was just a bigger challenge to overcome. So we did that, and we were successful with it. So the one thing I would do and say to you is just be confident when you're innovating. And as I've tried to sort of point out often, it's not the most complex things that have the biggest effect. A couple of examples I've given you there that have had a real profound effect on our clients and their bottom line. So thank you for not falling asleep. And
don't give us Thanks, Nick. Thanks very much. First of all, it's great to be here and see everybody. Great to see events like this, being a big technology partner in the city. It's really good to see so many people here and so many stands in the main arena. So please take your time to look around everything. And thanks again to Steve. As Steve said, it's a partnership that we've had with Gosschalks for many years, and one we value very much. And I think the way I look at that partnership, we do what we do very well. Meaning that Gosschalks can do what they do very well. And I think you saw how that partnership can be. If you're good at what you do and you work together with different customers, you can really achieve something that others can't. And I think, if you just look at the last 2 years, lots of people talk about the pandemic, but if we just give a kind of broadband usage view, our network had to jump, be capable of 200% more than it did in February compared to March. So in an instant, we saw everything flip by 200%. So all of us, I'm sure you can relate to that in terms of whether you're watching Netflix at home, whether you're buying things you didn't need off Amazon, or whether you're working in a hybrid environment. The way you became so dependent on the connectivity you have, whether that's at work, changed in a moment, completely changed, and it hasn't gone back. We have seen usage drop as people have come back to the office and come to events like this. When we would all be sitting at home in our pajamas watching it on a screen, we're now here in person. So we are seeing it come down, but it's still 70, 80% higher than it was post. So that kind of constant focus on connectivity is absolutely key. It is really key for KCOM and this region. Now, we are one of the only cities here in Hull that has connectivity into 97% of the homes and businesses in this city. And that is a stat that we still remain top of all that speed and connectivity charts. It's what enabled Gosschalks to wake up on the day after Boris's announcement and still operate, because the majority of their staff had full fibre at their home and could work straight away with video and Teams integration, everything, the investment that Steve had made in their business. Like many of our other customers, like many of our employees, we all benefited instantly. And sometimes I think it's easy to forget that we are one of the only cities in the UK that have that level of connectivity. Nowhere else does. They are catching us, and I think it's part of our full fibre strategy, which I'll come on, which is why we want to continue to invest. We see real opportunity in focusing what we're good at, connectivity. We've been doing this since 1904 in the city of Hull and the region. We want to make this the most connected region we possibly can as we move forward, and that's really what our full fibre future is all about. But a key part of that, which I'll touch on in a minute, is digital inclusion. Education we talked about was without that, many of our children wouldn't have been able to be taught for 2 years in the way they were. As stressful as it was, I've got 2 children, it was hard work, but without the internet, without Google Classrooms, without the ability for them to learn, it would have been a lost 2 years for many of our children. Now, unfortunately, there were some children that didn't have everything they needed. And that's part of our strategy moving forward is how do we make sure we leave no one behind? Because we could all give some great examples of how connectivity has made a massive difference, but there are people that don't have access to that, and that's part of our strategy moving forward, a really big part. Events like this, working with local businesses, local charities, how do we drive that inclusion as we roll out our network so no one is left behind and everyone can benefit from the investments that we're making. And if you think about the quality of the network, right, we've all been used to many years of copper-fed broadband like the rest of the UK. If you look at fibre now, the stability of that network that gives you for video calls, for streaming information, and I think e-health will only grow as the industry moves on. So, do you need to go to the doctors and A&E all the time? Is there a better way you can engage with the National Health Service? We haven't touched that. No one's cracked how you deliver technology into the health service. And that's why events like this, things that you'll see today with VR and other technologies that sit on top of connectivity, is the answer to how we make a difference. Because we can't have the queues and the performance of NHS continue when we've got all the technology. It all exists, right? It comes back to exactly what Steve said. Businesses can focus on what they're good at, knowing the connectivity is there. And 97% of the homes and businesses in Hull will have full fibre connectivity. There must be, how can we all innovate on top of that? How can we reduce waiting times in Hull? How can we set ourselves as the pinnacle of what health service needs to be in this area because we've got the connectivity? And that's a lot of the focus we drive. How do we help our partners in the same way as Steve talked about Gosschalks from a legal perspective? How do we help NHS Digital? How do we help other businesses that need that connectivity to do something different? I think that's a really important part of as we move forward. As I've talked about, Fibre for Everyone is our digital inclusion initiative. It's really there to make sure we capture and work with a load of local charities, which we do already, but we want to do more. Right? We're putting up £500,000 over the next 3 years to support those charities, to drive inclusion, to drive better connectivity to those areas that we need to. We recently launched our Flex product, which is really aimed at those people on universal credit that has a much more discounted product so they can get connected, so we can work through there. We've been working with local charities around laptops. How do we get more laptops? Some homes have one phone to share between 5 people and they've got to do their homework on it and live their life. That's happening today, and how can we do our part with other businesses to make a difference there? I think that's something we should do because we can't leave people behind. I think we've seen that through education. And I've certainly seen it from my children that they were lucky enough to have connectivity all the way through and a computer. But you can see a difference, and I think we'll see that play out over the many years going forward. That those who didn't have that have missed out, and we need to make sure that if this ever happens again, nobody's left behind, and that's a really big focus for us. But then we want to roll out our network further. So a big part of our full fibre future is how do we extend our network further? How do we bring what we've done here in Hull, working with businesses, councils, people, out to other villages as we move forward? So I recently announced that we're extending our network and we're investing another £62 million to take our network out further, more rural, smaller villages, where we feel they've been left behind in the drive that we've seen in connectivity. We want to make this region an area people want to come and live. Right, we do a lot of work with local councils. Connectivity, if you're moving house, the first check you'll all do now is what's the broadband capability in the house. Probably before you'd even look at what the schools were around in the area. The first thing we all think about now is the right connectivity there. So if these areas don't have the right connectivity, with hybrid working at its highest and will continue, I don't think we'll ever go back to everyone in the office 5 days a week. I think we've all accepted that. Without connectivity, then people won't move to the region. And without people here, jobs in the future, schooling won't improve. So it suddenly becomes a key factor to the number of people who can move to the area, new homes being built. If we can't bring new people, we can't get investment in education. So it starts to become the absolute box, the kind of key capability to grow the region. which is why I think we are so passionate about what we can do, but do it well. Exactly what Steve said. We know what we need to do. We built networks for over 100 years. We know how to operate our network. You can trust us to do it, as we've got many customers like Steve. We know what we need to do. Then it's about how do we innovate on top of that? How do we build that digital platform in more and more areas as we move out to make this region, not just the city of Hull, but the whole region, one as a digital hotspot where people can innovate and do different things. They can come and live. We grow the area. We do more and more all the time. Because the more people we bring in, the more success the region will have, and I think, and the more investment it feeds everything. And we talked about C4DI. That was the vision when we were part of that. Kicking that off was exactly that. If you can use the connectivity, you can create jobs. You make Hull an area people want to come to and want to live and want to work. And I think we can continue to do that as we move forward. And connectivity becomes a key part of it. And we're also looking to upgrade another £10 million investment in other smaller areas around Beverley and other areas where they haven't got the full connectivity today, all for the same reasons. So big investments we're making in connectivity. And we can see speed change. I talked about usage, a 200% increase. So today we offer speeds up to 900 megabits per second. We now upgrading our network to eventually offer everybody 10 gigabytes, so 10 times faster speed. Now, right now, you may think, why? Right. Just look out there today, you'll see virtual reality. You hear people talking about the metaverse. Our online lives will only get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the applications they build on top will get hungrier and hungrier and hungrier for data. And we've all come to expect when you turn your PC on, you turn your phone on, whatever device you've got, you want it there and then. You don't want to see that little screen that swirls around anymore. Back those days are gone. Our patience has gone. Right? It's exactly the same way Amazon's so successful, because you can get it the next day. Right? My kids say, you can order it now, Dad, it will come tomorrow. Right? So they're already used to that. Patience and waiting has gone dramatically shorter. Technology has driven that, and we need to keep up with the pace, because if you want to watch a 4K film, you don't want to have to wait 5 minutes for it to download. You want it the minute you push, I want to play, or you're going to turn off to something else. So we're seeing that kind of experience grow and grow and grow, which means we need to invest in our network to make sure we're not left behind or customers feel the pain in terms of where we need to get to. So that's a big part of our expansion moving forward. The other big part, here in Hull, we also run a copper network, right? So we've got a fibre network, which we spend a lot of time talking about, but underneath all that is a copper network that has been there since the 1980s, which supplies all the voice. And we are now in a process of removing that copper network, moving all our voice services onto our fibre network. So we end up with one network providing all the services. If I look at energy, it uses half our consumption of energy is on that copper network. And I'll just ask the question, who was the last time when someone used their home phone at home? Just put your hand up. So behaviour's changed from the 80s to now. But if I ask you who was last went online at home, you'd all put your hand up. So the behaviour's changed, so we need to change our technology. We need to make sure future development of our engineers and training is all on our new network. So over the next 2 years, we're looking to close down our copper network, move all of our services onto our fibre network. So that's for home users and businesses. There's much more capability now in a digital world. Gosschalks, as Steve talked about, the use of Teams, video calls, now it's becoming a common factor. Legacy networks like copper can't support video calls. So I think customer usage has driven us to a full fibre network, which is what we're driving towards now. Now we're going to spend the next 2 years moving our customers onto that final full fibre network and moving it across. So I guess building on what Steve says, our strategy moving forward for the next 3 to 5 years is we're investing heavily in the network in the region. We want to make us one of the most digitally connected areas in the UK. We're already at the top, but if you don't keep moving forward, you fall backwards. So this is really about keeping this region right at the top of that. We'll do that by expanding and moving out further. The more homes will have access to our network, they have the experience many of the people that live in the city have today in terms of the connectivity, giving them the opportunities to grow individually and for businesses moving forward. And we'll make sure we don't leave anyone behind as we do it. And that's really, for me personally, a really key factor. We can build the best network, get customers connected, but if we miss out this chance, I think we all owe it to everybody in the region that no one will be left behind in the digital world, because they will be seriously left behind, I think, in the future. And we will feel that pain in 20, 30 years when there's not enough people with digital skills in the jobs that we become very reliant on. And I think everyone deserves that chance to kind of grow their career. And that's KCOMs, Full Fibre Future. So hopefully you really like it. Thanks very much.